what it was like to dine aboard the Titanic in first, second, and third class. During its time, Titanic was arguably the most luxurious ship ever to set sail, having grand and decent accommodations better than what most were used to for its first, second, and third class passengers. When it came to ticket prices, in today's money, a first-class ticket would cost between $4,500 and $130,000, while a second-class ticket would cost roughly $1,800, and a third-class ticket being $1,000. To accommodate the ship's 2,200 passengers, Titanic had a crew of over 900 members, and their jobs fell under 3 departments, being the deck department, which was made up of 66 men, including the captain, officers, and sailors that were in charge of the ship. Then the engine department, which was ran by the chief engineer Joseph Bell, along with 325 additional men in charge of generating the power needed for the ship. These men included engineers, firemen, stokers, trimmers, and greasers. And no, not that kind. This kind. Most worked in the boiler room in 3 shifts a day to keep the furnaces stocked with coal and keeping the engines running. The third department was by far the largest, and that was the victualling department, with 429 men along with women. This department was led by the ship's purser and was in charge of the hotel aspects of the ship. These occupations included those that were cooks, bartenders, waiters, cleaners, cabin stewards, elevator operators, those who worked in the gymnasium, barber shop, Turkish baths, and additionally the 5 postal clerks and 8 musicians. When it came to feeding the many people on the ship, every day the ship's purser would meet with the head chef and his cooks to discuss the menus of the coming days. Then the storekeepers could procure all of the ingredients necessary for the menus. At port, 8 crew members were in charge of making sure enough food was loaded onto the ship. They then stored all the food at the correct temperature and kept it ready at all times, located on G deck. In this area of the ship, there were separate rooms for milk and butter, fruit, eggs, bacon, ham, cheese, meat, mutton, fish, and ice cream. These areas stored roughly 75,000 pounds of fresh meat, 25,000 pounds of poultry, 11,000 pounds of fresh fish, 40 tons of potatoes, 7,000 heads of lettuce, 13,000 grapefruits, 36,000 oranges, 800 pounds of tea, 250 barrels of flour, 40,000 fresh eggs, and 1,200 quarts of ice cream. 1,000 bottles of wine, 850 bottles of liquor, and 15,000 bottles of ale.
Wrong glass, sir.
To transport the food up to the first or second class kitchens, an elevator system was used. The third class kitchen, however, was in closer proximity, so they simply walked the food over. When it came to the third class passengers, a ticket in today's money of $1,000 was worth about 2 months' wages. One third class passenger stated, "In my view, nothing approaching the accommodation has ever been experienced in any other previous journeys, and nothing but a pleasant voyage is anticipated. Before you could board the ship, you would need to go through a physical examination to make sure you didn't have any bugs or lice.
Have you been through the inspection queue?
Of course. Anyway, we don't have any license. We're Americans.
As typically for these passengers, it was meant to be a one-way ticket to America, where they would start and begin a new life. These regulations were also why the third-class passengers were not able to have access to the entirety of the ship, creating a divide between the different classes and allowing for different accommodations for each class. Once on board, you might stay in one of the 84 two-berth cabins, which included electricity, a wardrobe, and a sink with running water. You could also find larger cabins with up to 6 bunks, often occupied by families or single travelers. Most people were able to wash up in their room simply with their wash basin, but if you wanted to take a bath, they had 2 available, one for men and one for women. There were a few different spaces as a third-class passenger that you had access to. One was the general room, paneled and framed in pine and finished in white enamel. This room had teak furniture and a piano. It was a space where passengers often gathered with their own instruments. They played live music and held dances. It was a lively and happy space. But if you desired more peace and quiet, you could go to the third-class smoking room. This room had linoleum floors, oak-paneled walls, and a bar that served ale and beer. This was a cozy place to smoke and play cards. The chairs, like the general room, would have been made of wood and not upholstered. And if you desired to get some fresh air and feel the ocean breeze, you could promenade around the decks available to you. Before Titanic, many times the third class would be required to bring their own food, utensils, and cutlery as well. One passenger stated, "We had a grand time on the Titanic. We got a very good diet and had a very jolly time at dancing and singing. We had every kind of instrument on board to amuse us." Passengers would eat in one of 2 dining rooms on F deck that was separated by the watertight bulkhead. The 2 saloons extended from the entirety of the ship and were well lit with side lights and finished in white enamel. Together, the 2 rooms could accommodate 473 passengers. Once you had entered, you'd hang up your coat and hat on the hooks along the wall. Then you would take a seat at one of the communal tables of about 20, which were lined in linen, and you would then be served by a steward. For third-class passengers, you were treated to 4 meals a day, being breakfast, dinner, tea, and supper, in that very order. And you know what your options were ahead of time because every day the menu was printed on a card in the languages of German, Finnish, Swedish, and English. Now let's take a look at what they would have eaten. On Titanic's final day, we have a breakfast menu which consisted of oatmeal, porridge and milk, smoked herrings, jacket potatoes, ham and eggs, fresh bread and butter with marmalade along with tea and coffee. Dinner would have been the main meal of the day, being served around noon, and here the passengers ate rice soup, fresh bread, cabin biscuits, roast beef with brown gravy, sweet corn, boiled potatoes, plum pudding with sweet sauce, and fruit. For tea, you were served cold meat and cheese, pickles, fresh bread and butter, stewed figs and rice, and of course, tea. And for supper, passengers ate gruel, cabin biscuits, and cheese. Now let's talk about Titanic's second-class experience. There were roughly 285 second-class passengers, and most of them boarded from Southampton, England. Once aboard the ship, you would descend a fine oak staircase to your cabin. And these cabins greatly varied in level of luxury, as the best of them could have been used by the first class, and the worst of them could have been used for the third class. Most of the cabins were designed to be occupied by 2 or 4 passengers. And like third class, if you were a single passenger, you would have shared your room. These rooms had running water, though it was not designated in hot and cold like it was in first class. And if you didn't need all the bunks in your room, they could be folded into an upholstered sofa. Your room would have been furnished with fine mahogany furniture just like the rooms in first class, but the ship's beams were often left visible like those in third class. Rooms often had more storage than that of a third-class passenger would, but you didn't have your own toilet or bath. Those were still shared accommodations. Interestingly, many people at the time would have considered second class on Titanic better than first class on most other ships. The second class had amenities like a barber shop on board and a library decorated in the 18th century Adams style, where you could read quietly and borrow a book, sitting in one of their plush green upholstered chairs. There you could write a letter to home, and it could be posted from the Titanic as it was a Royal Mail ship. You could also spend time in the second-class smoke room and then promenade around the spaces available to you, with the second class having some of the best areas to do so. Second-class food was prepared in the same galley as the first-class food, and featured many of the same dishes, but the biggest difference was simply the choice and the quantity of those dishes. Instead of multiple restaurants which the first class had, second class only had one, spanning the width of D-deck and letting in lots of natural light from its portholes on both sides. It could also accommodate 394 passengers, being well lit with lamps in the ceiling, and having a piano which was played during meals. In third class, you were called to your meals with a bell, and in first class you were called with a bugle, but second class enjoyed the sound of a gong. When you got there, everyone was assigned a different seat, and you would sit at large communal tables of mahogany, with swivel chairs that were bolted to the ground in crimson leather. Breakfast was served at 8 a.m., and according to this menu from April 11th, breakfast included fruit, rolled oats, boiled hominy, fresh fish, Yarmouth bloaters, which is an unfortunate name for a smoked and salted fish, grilled ox kidneys and bacon, American dry hash au gratin, grilled sausage, mashed potatoes, grilled ham and fried eggs, fried potatoes, Vienna and graham rolls, soda scones, buckwheat pancakes, maple syrup, marmalade, tea, coffee, and watercress. Second-class passengers would enjoy a wide variety of options for luncheon, and this meal was a bit lighter to make way for the main meal of the day, which was the dinner meal. The second-class luncheon menu would have been quite similar to that of the menu in first class, just with less options. Now, taking a look at a dinner menu from April 14th, the meal started off with consomme tapioca, then baked haddock with sharp sauce. Then you had your choice of an entree, being curried chicken, spring lamb with mint sauce, or roast turkey with cranberry sauce. From there were sides of green peas, turnips, boiled rice, boiled and roasted potatoes, and then you had a choice of desserts, where you could choose plum pudding, wine jelly, coconut sandwiches, or American ice cream. You would then end your meal with assorted nuts, fresh fruit and cheese, biscuits, and coffee. If you were a first-class passenger, Titanic offered the best accommodations that money had to buy in 1912, offering its passengers unforeseen luxuries that were only dreamt of aboard an ocean liner of that time. On April 10, 1912, passengers would board the ship from Southampton, England. They would arrive in carriages or in cars and have copious amounts of luggage and also be accompanied by staff and servants, such as ladies' maids and valets. Once you had entered the ship, you would either be on B deck or on D deck. First class rooms began on A deck and ended on E deck. Titanic contained 371 first-class rooms in total. There were 4 parlor suites, 39 private suites, and the rest were single or double berth staterooms. Every room contained a horsehair sofa, wardrobe, dressing table, and marble-topped wash basin, as well as a call button that could summon a steward, a reading lamp, and a wire mesh basket for storing small items. Although the Titanic was centrally heated, the first-class cabins all contained electric heaters. Titanic featured an impressive ratio of private bathrooms to passengers, more than any other ship in 1912. Virtually every suite on B and C deck featured ensuite bathrooms. It was standard at the time for the bulk of first-class bathrooms to be shared, and this indeed was the case for the majority of the first class. The single-berth staterooms on A deck were decorated more modestly than the lavish period suites located on B and C decks. The most expensive of these would have been the private promenade suites located on B deck. Like the name suggests, these suites contained a private 50-foot promenade, complete with half-timber Tudor-style paneling, sofas, tables, potted plants, and wicker deck chairs. In this space, you could have your own breakfast. The suites contained 2 large bedrooms, 2 walk-in wardrobes, a private bathroom, a lavatory, and a spacious sitting room. The sitting rooms allowed you to receive small parties of guests. They featured a fake fireplace, large card table, plush sofas and chairs, sideboards, and writing desks. The first-class suites on B and C decks were richly appointed in 11 different period styles, such as neoclassical, Louis XIV, XV, XVI, Empire, Georgian, and Italian Renaissance, to name a few. When it came to the first class, no amount of money was spared for the many amenities available to them, such as a gymnasium, Turkish bath, steam room, private massage room, swimming pool, and squash court. The gymnasium was open between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. for ladies only, 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. for children only, and 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. for gentlemen only. The gymnasium contained a weightlifting machine, mechanical bicycles, punching bag, and very interestingly, rowing machines, electric horses, and electric camels. You might also choose to go to the Turkish baths. There was a temperate room, cool room, hot room, steam room, electric bath, and 2 shampoo rooms where massages were performed. The baths were segregated by women and men. Women between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. and to men between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. There was a charge of 4 shillings or $1 per person for admission, this money being back in 1912. Today costing roughly $35. The architecture of the Turkish bathing rooms was absolutely gorgeous. The cool room was the central feature of the Turkish baths and was decorated in the Arabic and Moorish styles. The walls were fit with glossy blue-green tiles, richly carved teak furniture, and bronze lamps. There was also 1 marble drinking fountain. The ceilings were very deeply recessed and painted in a deep crimson, with gilded beams and beautiful hanging lanterns. They were supported by pillars encased in teak. The swimming pool was located near the Turkish baths. It was a heated pool measuring 30 feet with a depth of 7 feet. The water depth was only 5 foot 4 inches at the deep end and 4 foot 6 at the shallow end. The pool was indeed heated salt water, and the floors were tiled in blue and white linoleum. Descending into the pool were marble stairs with teak footholds. The pool cost $35 in today's money to use, but the pool was free of charge to men between the hours of 6 and 8 a.m. for morning exercise. The squash/racket court was also available to you, located on G deck. It measured 30 feet by 20 feet long, and it also had a spectator's gallery on F deck overlooking the court. A game would cost roughly $15 in today's money. The first class lounge was one of the most stylish and beautiful places aboard the ship, modeled in the Louis XV style. After the Palace of Versailles, it occupied a large space midship on the A deck, and it offered views onto the promenade deck and the ocean beyond. The lounge was open daily between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. This room was used primarily for socialization, connecting with other passengers, and chatting with your party. Tea, coffee, and light refreshments were also available to you. There were many nice alcoved spaces allowing for more private conversations. You could also choose to borrow a book from the lending library, where there was a permanent collection of classics and the latest releases. You might also choose to spend time in the reading and writing room. This was a leisurely and quiet space where you could write letters to your family and friends. The room was decorated in the refined Georgian style, featuring painted white and dove gray accents. The room had plasterwork combined with sleek paneling and fluted columns. There was also a white fireplace with maroon marble and white ribboning. Another leisurely space available was the smoking room. The room was reserved for gentlemen only, and this was the social convention at the time. Here, gentlemen played cards, gambled, conversed, drank, and smoked. The smoking room was richly decorated and housed the only working real fireplace on board. The rest of the fireplaces were electrically heated. The room was fitted with richly carved mahogany wood in a deep color. There was also mother of pearl inlaid in the wood, and also beautiful stained glass which depicted different ports from all over the world. The smoking room remained open between 8:30 a.m. and 12 a.m. Now let us discuss the entire dining experience one would have had while aboard Titanic in first class. If you were an early riser, you could go ahead and eat breakfast in your stateroom. The steward could bring you anything from fresh fruit to warm scones, jam, coffee, tea, and other small delights. You could then proceed to second breakfast, either in the dining saloon, a la carte restaurant, Café Parisien, or the Veranda Cafe. Although the Veranda Cafe only served light refreshments and light fare of cakes, pastries, and other small temptations. The dining saloon was open between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. for breakfast, while other restaurants and cafes were open throughout the day until 11 p.m. The dining saloon was only open during select times for lunch, dinner, and breakfast, and not the entirety of the day. According to this breakfast menu from April 11th, passengers could order baked apples, fresh fruit, stewed prunes, Quaker oats, boiled hominy, puffed rice, fresh herrings, haddock, smoked salmon, grilled mutton kidneys and bacon, grilled ham, grilled sausage, lamb collops, vegetable stew, eggs in a variety of forms such as fried, poached, and boiled, along with omelets ready to order, either plain or with tomatoes. There were sirloin steaks and mutton chops ready to order, along with mashed, sautéed, and jacket potatoes. Then cold meats, Vienna and graham rolls, soda and sultana scones, cornbread, buckwheat pancakes, blackcurrant preserves, honey, and Oxford marmalade, along with watercress. The a la carte restaurant was the preferred alternative to the main dining saloon and gave passengers the option to enjoy lavish French haute cuisine, for an additional cost, of course. The restaurant was not managed by the White Star Line, but instead by Luigi Gotti, an Italian businessman who ran a staff of over 60. The restaurant offered two different continental breakfast menus, one being English and the other American. The menu offers almost identical choices to the menu offered in the dining saloon, but there are a few specialty items which you could only get here. Now let's talk about lunch. You could enjoy lunch in the Café Parisien, dining saloon, or the a la carte restaurant. The a la carte restaurant and the Café Parisien featured the same menu, but a different environment to sit in. In these restaurants, you could choose to have lunch whenever you liked. But if you wanted to eat in the dining saloon, which was free with your ticket price, you would need to be there between the hours of 1 and 2 p.m. The menus change daily, but here are two examples of real ones. Taking a look at this luncheon menu from April 10th, we can see that they offered consommé jardinière, hodgepodge, fillets of plaice, beefsteak and kidney pie, roast Surrey carpon, and from the grill, grilled mutton chops, mashed fried or baked jacket potatoes, rice pudding, apples Manhattan, and pastries. From the buffet section, there were fresh lobsters, potted shrimps, herrings, sardines, roast beef, round or spiced beef, Virginia Cumberland ham, bologna sausage, brawn, chicken, corned ox tongue, lettuce, and tomatoes. And to finish off the meal, a variety of cheeses. Now it's time for tea. Individuals gathered between 3 and 5 p.m., primarily women. You could have tea in a variety of locations on the ship, such as in the lounge, Café Parisien, a la carte restaurant, reception room, veranda cafe, or your own room. During this time, cakes, pastries, scones, and sandwiches were served alongside your tea. For dinner, you could choose to eat in the dining saloon or in the a la carte restaurant. The a la carte restaurant was an extra fee, but it was more luxurious and more quaint than the dining saloon. The a la carte restaurant was sometimes nicknamed the Ritz restaurant, as it emulated the Ritz Hotel. Dinner in the dining saloon would begin between 6 and 7:30 p.m. Passengers gathered in the reception room before dinner, where they waited for the rest of their party. They conversed and had drinks. It was the new fashion of the day to have cocktails before your meal, and it was the Americans on board who took to this new fashion, while the Europeans believed that cocktails ruined your appetite for dinner. Dinner aboard the Titanic was the main affair of the day. Whether in the dining saloon or in the a la carte restaurant, you were treated to an unbelievable feast of 10 to 13 courses. The dining saloon was the largest room on board of any ship in 1912 and accommodated up to 554 passengers. The saloon was decorated in wooden paneling and painted in a glossy white enamel. There were 2 aisles the length of the room and created a large central dining area. In total, there were 115 tables, set for 2 to 12 individuals. Dinner menus changed every day, and this menu represents the last first-class dinner ever served on Titanic. Passengers enjoyed 10 courses that night, with the first being hors d'oeuvre varieties and oysters. A glass of champagne launched the meal, along with canapé à la morale. The oysters were likely served a la Russe, with toppings of diced tomatoes, vodka, lemon juice, and horseradish. The second course was the soup course, an obligatory part of any Edwardian dinner. This course consisted of a choice of two different soups, one, consommé Olga, or cream of barley. The third course consisted of poached salmon with mousseline sauce and cucumbers. For the fourth course, you had a choice of filet mignon Lily, sauté of chicken lyonnaise, or vegetable marrow farci. The fifth course was the main meal of the evening, and you had a choice of lamb and mint sauce, roast duckling with applesauce, or sirloin of beef with chateau potatoes. You could choose sides of green peas, creamed carrots, boiled rice, along with parmentier and boiled new potatoes. The sixth course was a punch romaine. This was a palate cleanser, and was customary after the heavier courses. The punch romaine consisted of shaved ice with simple syrup, champagne, white rum, and fresh squeezed orange and lemon juice, and was served with a citrus twist. The seventh course consisted of roast squab and cress. It was wrapped in slices of bacon and roasted with garlic and fresh marjoram, served with a pan reduction sauce and a salad consisting of fresh watercress. For the eighth course, passengers enjoyed cold asparagus vinaigrette. The ninth course was pâté de foie gras and celery, being served room temperature on toast. The 10th course was the dessert course, where one could have Waldorf pudding, peaches and chartreuse jelly, chocolate and vanilla eclairs, and French ice cream. Ice cream during this time was thought to be the height of luxury, mostly owing to the need to keep it cold, which was extremely expensive prior to the advent of refrigerators. And finally, as a traditional end to French dinners, a course of cheese and fresh fruit would be served. When the meal was finished, the ladies and the gentlemen split. The women would remain in the dining room while the men would go to the smoking room. Thank you so much for watching Cultured Elegance. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. And comment down below telling me your favorite dish that was shared in this video. See you in the next one. Bye for now.